and we are going to talk about procure to pay process and order to cash process. Am I audible to everyone?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Okay. So in this process, we are going to talk about order to cash and procure to pay process. And these are the main business process or business cycles that are going to we are going to work on, because those are the ones that impact the finance. And pretty much these these two business flows cover the entire financial modules that we are going to talk about. But there are there is a record to uh, and then like a report process, which is pretty much just a GL process. But since we if we cover this, it also includes being a part of that, because that's just a sub process of this particular processes. And so if we talk about procurement, what is that comes into the mind in the first thing when we talk about procurement? You can unmute yourself and you can make it a more interactive. So when you wanted to procure something, what is that first you make sure that you procure? So you won't procure anything that is not required. So the condition that you need to make sure, so there should be a requirement. That is the first condition that you need to make sure. How the requirement can raise because of various conditions. The requirement comes based on the demand. The requirement comes based on the need, and requirement comes because of the internal consumption requirements. So I'll take a simple example. So when we want to procure something, I'll just take a simple example. If you wanted to buy vegetables, so what is that pushes you to buy the vegetables? One, your vegetables are all like done at the home, or you want to cook something that is like a good recipe. So either of these will push for and create a requirement to purchase vegetables. In the similar fashion, when there is a requirement, what is that you make sure? So there should be something else also, that somebody who is ready to supply that. So there should be somebody who is ready to supply that. So and then, so once we have a supplier, what else do we need? If we have supplier, we won't just get everything whatever we want. We have to have a certain procedural manner that we can be able to talk to the supplier. That is what is called negotiation. So we talk to him and we try to negotiate with him and make him to understand we wanted to buy these, whatever the item that we are buying, and then we want to give him at a reasonable price. So that is what we need to make him. So but when we go to a vegetable market, we won't do, we call it as negotiation. In that case, it's a bargaining. But in case of a bigger organization, they won't call it as a bargaining. It's called a negotiation. So they start negotiate. So they talk to a lot of people. They speak to multiple suppliers and request them with respect to that. So I'll go a little I'll try to provide you the flow, how it is going to look. So this is the purchasing or the procure to pay process, where there is a need for the material. The material need comes from the inventory department. The inventory department is going to department is going to raise the purchase requisition, and the purchase requisition has to be followed, and then like the item that you are looking for and the quantity that you are looking for, that is what is sent to the purchasing department. What purchasing department does is, if they purchased this similar item in the past, they go ahead and create a purchase order and talk to the supplier. But assume it is not necessary that like the same item is procured in the past. So if that particular item is not procured in the past, there is a process called sourcing. It's a very big process. That sourcing process is going to follow the entire process of purchase requisition. When there is this particular item requirement has never arisen in the past, in such cases, what is that the sourcing department or the sourcing team within the purchasing department will do that. So what they do, they request for a quotation and they send, this is the item that we need. The item can be A. So what they do is, they wanted to procure an item called mobile phone. So this is the item that they wanted to procure. And when they want to procure the mobile phone, so they need to make sure they communicate to the lot of supplier and they request for the quotation. So when the supplier receives the request for quotation, he responds with what is the quantity or the schedule that he can provide to you or to the purchasing department, and he will also provide what is the best price that he can provide, because within his organization as well, he cannot mass produce the item whenever you want it, or he may be supplying for other customers as well. So he will set a right quantity limit when he is supplying that particular item, mobile phone. So he will respond back to the request for quotation, RFQ, and he will provide a quote. That is called a quote. So based on the supplier received RFQ, supplier response. What is the supplier response? The supplier response is going to be the quote. So supplier sent the quote. What is the next step? So we do need to, in the similar fashion, we received multiple quotes from multiple suppliers. In that case, what we do is like we analyze the quote. That is called the process of quote analysis. And then once we analyze the quote and we know that like this is the best price in the market and we are going to get the best price at the best schedules, the schedule in the sense like so he may say that like every month 15th he can produce a maximum of 100 mobile sets that he can supply based on his capacity of the production. So this is called capacity, supplier capacity. And then there is a price, as well. And he will also say that like since I am going to send you 100 mobiles, that might cost me something like $100. I'll say take a little lower price. And if I supply more than 100, then my price will go to 95. Like that, the negotiations will continue based on that, because when a supplier sends, usually we all understand when supplier can produce and send lot of items, that means more the quantity, he can be able to give us a discount, or he can benefit when he is producing mass production. Such is the benefit that he will communicate as the price band, that what is the item range. Suppose if he is 1 to 100 units, he will give us a rate of $100, and 101 to 299 units, he give us a price band of $95. Anything above 299, he can give us only for $80. So that's what he agreed with us. So this is what is called negotiation. We talked about negotiation. So that is basically like what price, what are the best schedules that you can be able to meet. So if he wanted like every month he can only produce 100 commodities or the 100 items of the mobile, and then how best he has to increase his capacity to produce or give us the more items. Any questions at this point in time?
No.
Okay,
No.
excellent. So okay, I'll quickly go back to the process here. So when we talk about the quote analysis will give us a lot of inputs. Based on that, we take the decision, or the purchasing department takes the decision, and then they approve the supplier. They can approve for the same item, they can approve multiple suppliers as well. So that is what is called an approved supplier list. And once the supplier is approved, again the purchasing department will take that information from the quote team, and then they will send a purchase order to the supplier. Once supplier receives the purchase order, he will send us an acknowledgement that he received a purchase order. If he can meet the schedule, he will say, yes, I am meeting the schedule, so I am going to produce these items based on the schedules that you mentioned and based on the discussed rate. If there is any kind of like fluctuations that could probe us, or like sometimes what happens is like there is a change in the exchange rate, so he will let us know and say that, oh, there could be potential price changes, because if he is giving it from a different country altogether. So those are the indications that he could provide us from the suppliers. And once the supplier meets the requirement and he sends us a GRN along with the mobile phones that he produced, and that is the in our organization sense, it is going to be called as a receiving. So in this process we are going to receive the items or the mobile phones in this case, and then we are going to record the against the purchase order and say that we have received the quantity of 100 units. And we also say that like we received on 15th of this month, and we say that like we received 100 quantity based on the purchase order. So that is what is called GRN, means goods receipt note. So this is the very olden term, but still it is continued across the globe, and this is a well-known term, so you can always like write it down. It is very useful. When somebody tells you a goods receipt note, GRN, and you won't need to get confused with these ones, because in the purchasing terminology that is called quickly GRN, an abbreviated term. So once the items are received, if there is any kind of inspection needed, they'll quickly check that everything is fine and is okay. Then what they do is like the inventory team is going to delivery into the inventory department or the warehouse, so that in this process this particular item is available for supply to our customer. We'll talk that in the detail in the next flow, this what happens to the item then. So I told you, when that supplier says there is a possible price changes, when there is a possible price change, we get to see a purchase price variance. Assume that there was a price or the exchange rate that was changed from the time that we raised, and by the time the suppliers produces and sends us the items and we receive the items, there is a possible purchase price variance. In that case, that is called a purchase price variance, and that is recorded as purchase price variance when it is delivered into the inventory. This is very, very key when you at what time that somebody can ask you what is the at what time you receive the purchase price variance, whether it is Oracle flow or any flow for that matter. This is going to be a standard flow of the within the organization. Somebody want to do the process. So when somebody delivers into the inventory, if there is any kind of changes, the change based on what this particular purchase price variance is, because when supplier sends us and the PO has a specific price, but our standard cost has a different rate. So if there is any difference between the PO price and the standard cost, we get to see the purchase price variance. Okay, and then let's quickly go back to when supplier sent us the items, he won't leave us there. He want money as well, so he will send us a supplier invoice, which is nothing but a purchase invoice, and then the payment department or the accounting department will receive that, and then they record that the purchase invoice, and once the based on the payment terms, if it is like 30 or like maybe sometimes like it could be 60 days or it could be 90 days, based on those terms the supplier gets the the payment for the purchase invoice. But so in this process as well, there is a possible variances. So that we'll talk when we talk in the detail when it is an accounting specifics. Okay, in this process, you guys have understood something, have not understood something, because I quickly ran through the process to give a fair view of the diagram that I made. Now you can raise questions, so that like we'll now go into the little deeper process of detailed step-by-step manner and what it means when it comes to the Oracle. Any questions? You can have any kind of question, that don't worry about it. Okay, so Sharif was asking, explain the GRN. The GRN is goods receipt note. When somebody sends items, or the, like in this case, like we have talked about mobile phones, when the supplier sends the mobile phones, he will pack every mobile phone in an individual packaging, and then he will put that in a specific box or a carton that is called, and then he will send us either through a courier or through another media that he can be able to send us and make it to deliver to his customer. When he is sending that, like the GRN explains that what is the item that was packed in that particular box or the carton, and what is the quantity of that particular the item that he has supplied. And so there could be potential, like based on the country, there could be say that like this contains so many chemicals, so many things, so many, it has been produced in so and so country, and it has been assembled in so and so place, and this is shipped from so and so location to the specific location. Excuse me. So that is what is that particular GRN contains. Did I make sense, Sharif? Okay, let me explain you GRN. GRN is a small document. It looks like, okay. Bear with me. Okay. So this might contain a serial number, and it contains item, might contain description and a point. On the top, so this is what we are talking about. This is a GRN, and this will have a number, GRN number. I'm just taking an example of it, and it's going to be shipped to location, and he might even say that like ship from location, and in this case like he'll say that like item is like 10001 and the mobile phone is like Ericsson T200, and the quantity is 100, and he'll say that serial number 2, and say that like 1 2 3 4 001, and he'll say that like charger 100, and then on the third one he will say that like and there could be an extended wire or like maybe a USB cable that he will say that like 100. So when he is sending the goods receipt note, this is the information that he is going to send, and he will also say that like some details here and say that like this is produced in Denmark and meets all the federal requirements, like that. Something like he will put a note and then like he will send us. So this all looks like in one single page. This is what we are going to receive along with um, the items that we have received. This is what is basically the GRN that we are talking about. This is GRN means goods receipt note. Is it did I explain you, Sharif, what you are looking for? You can unmute yourself and like say that. Okay, that's fine. So okay, then let's talk. Let's go to the generic flow. How we talked about when it is image. How this is how it is. How the individual flow is like is going to. What we explained, I am going to explain it in a generic flow. So the first aspect, whenever there is a requirement, it has to be identified that we need a specific item for a supply. So then that comes from the usually from the inventory, or like if there is a stationery, it can come from any kind of department. If it is like something else, like maybe somebody needs some specific based on the organization policy, they will all identify that particular requirement. And if it is if somebody want to buy the raw material, that always comes from the inventory department, and they identify the requirement in the inventory department, and they authorize that particular requisition, and then it will go to the final approval of the purchase requisition, and then the procurement process starts. And in the procurement process, the first aspect is they have to identify the supplier and who can produce that who can supply that particular item, and they make the inquiries and say that like this is what the item that we needed, can we be able to produce, and when there is a requirement, the requirement also follows a specific aspect that this item is needed within so and so time. So that particular aspect will be discussed during the inquiries with the supplier. And then so once we talk to the supplier and we ask them to provide the quotation for that is called RFQ. That's what I explained it to you here. And the purchasing department or the sourcing team within the purchasing department, they request for the quotation, and that is what happens during the inquiries process. And then they receive the quotation. So that is what, once they receive the quotation, so what they do is like they start the quote analysis. In the quote analysis, they go back and forth with the supplier and they negotiate. One, they can negotiate the terms, they can negotiate the price, They can negotiate the supply schedules, so many and so on. So they negotiate with the supplier, and whoever can produce the best match for the requirement that we have identified, they'll take that particular vendor and they select that particular vendor. The vendor and the supplier is same. It's only terminology change. Don't get confused between vendor and a supplier. So here it says supplier and here it says vendor. Don't worry about it. It's pretty much the same term that we are using. The person who vends it is a vendor. The person who supplies it is going to be the supplier. Always, like, the vendor and the supplier is going to be the same. So we interchangeably use that term, supplier and vendor. And if once we select the supplier or the vendor, then we send the purchase requisition from the purchasing department, and supplier sends us an acknowledgement saying that I have received your purchase order. And along with the acknowledgement, if he sends an acknowledgement, means that he has agreed to the terms that we have provided along with the PO, and he confirms that he is shipping on so and so date, and he produce when he is going to already shipping, he will send us an ASN, sorry, that is called advance shipment notice, ASN. So once ASN is sent us, we can record in our system, say that the item is expected to receive on so and so date, and the goods received along with the GRN, goods receipt note, and then we also receive along with the goods an invoice. Then the accounting or the AP department will do the recording of that particular invoice, and they match that invoice to the PO, optionally also to the receipt. So that is what is called three-way matching. When I touch the purchasing, I am going to explain that what are the various ways of matching, and in this particular in purchasing aspect. And once the invoice is matched, the invoice is ready for payment. Based on the terms that we have agreed with the supplier, we make the payment to the supplier. This is how the generic flow goes. And when it comes to the Oracle specific flow, there may be too many information here, but we might not be able to create every document possible. So, but I haven't recorded the code process here. The code process is called sourcing process. Since I am only touching the purchasing aspect here, so I have recorded only the purchasing specific Oracle flows. So the first aspect that comes is the purchase requisition and the approval of the purchase requisition. Either it can be a supervisor or somebody who is a centralized approver who is going to approve the purchase requisition. And as I clearly mentioned in the past, if we do not have the supplier has never supplied this item in the past, then we go through the quote process. The quote is going to, this particular process is purely the sourcing process, and in that case we request for quotation from the supplier, and once supplier provided the quotation, we make sure we take all the internal decisions and we go back to the supplier, we negotiate all that, that is all external to Oracle. So that might be happening, but we don't have any kind of way to record that. So the only way that we record is like acknowledgement from the supplier for the quotation. So we record the acknowledgement for the quotation that we sent, and based on the acknowledgement of the quotation, we record that particular supplier, and he is going to be available in our purchasing as well as payables as a supplier. So, and he is also going to be part of our approved supplier list. Once the supplier is available, we can create a purchase order. So once the purchase order is created and sent to the supplier, he will return in this process there could be acknowledgement, but we are not recording any purchase order acknowledgement in the system. The next step that we are recording is the receipt of the goods. So once that is, the accounting starts from here, and then when there is we received the inventory against the PO, and then we deliver the goods to the inventory. There is an accounting, and then when we record the purchase invoice and when we match that purchase invoice, there is an accounting entry that takes place. So here I put it as O, means receipt is optional. So I told you when we talk detail, I will explain you the various ways to match the invoice to the PO, to the receipt, to the and if there is any kind of inspection required. So, and then we make the payment based on the terms to the supplier, and when the payment is made, and then we perform the reconciliation of the payment. So this is the Oracle procure to pay process, how the accounting happens. So this is the accounting that happens in procure to pay process. So when we received the goods, whatever the material control account or the inventory control account or the expense account, that gets debited, and inventory AP accrual account or the expense AP accrual account, that gets credited. When this particular items that we have received in the PO are delivered to the inventory, the material accounts get debited, and the inventory material control accounts, that gets credited. When AP invoice is created and matched to the PO, and we inventory AP accrual account gets debited and the AP liability account is created. When the invoice is fully paid, it reverses the AP liability and hits the cash clearing account. When the cash is reconciled in the cash management, the cash clearing accounts get debited and cash account gets credited. This is the flow of procure to pay. So you guys have any questions?
Oh, we're good. Thank you.
Oh, okay, good. So since I'll take a lot of questions at this point in time, and I would like to wind up this particular session of the second here, and then we'll talk tomorrow a little more detailed with respect to the order to cash flow. And so if you have any questions, please go ahead and let me know what are the questions that you have.
Well, only one question is, like I know, will you guys provide a recorded, what do you call, download of this session?
Yes, I am going to provide the recording of this session, and
Okay.
we also provide the documentation required for the
Okay.
for your understanding as well, and
Okay.
we also provide some kind of additional documentation, and
Okay.
we also provide the Oracle instance access for you, and since like this is a pretty much like a kind of a second session, we are going to talk through the flows and details of that. Once we uh, show you the demo of the instance, and when we are showing the instance, we can show you what are these terms and how we are matching to the individual items within Oracle, and how the flow is, because like when we talk about a specific flow and how the flow is flowing within Oracle. So that will give you enough of understanding with respect to, and you should be able to do on your own when you are practicing from your end.
Okay.
So that yeah, please go ahead.
I, uh, I, what was the session one? I think you said this is session two, right? Is that the demo? I
This
didn't.
is also a demo, but in this demo we are going to talk about the flow of the
No. You
executable.
said that this is session two, right? When did you guys do the session one?
Yesterday we did the session one.
Okay, so I missed that one, I think.
You can get the
So,
recording when you talk to
okay.
ERP tree.
Okay.
Yeah, you can get
Sounds
the recording of that one, and can I have your email address? Like you can just ping me the email address. I can,
okay. Okay.
somebody from my team will be able to share the recording of that. So in that way, like you get everything as a recorded session. So that's your own. Like you can be able to look at that particular recording, and you can be able to practice in a detailed manner whenever you wanted to. Okay, I got it. So that's okay. So anybody else have any questions?
I'm good from my side.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Um, I just want to take it as like you guys are understanding everything right, or like you don't have questions at this point in time. You
That's
can,
correct. Yeah. I guess once we get into the details of it, then we'll have a
yes, yes, yeah. Once we get into the details of it, like you might
we'll
get
have some.
too many questions. Yes, that's for sure. Okay, and then so I'll say that like I'm ending this session at this point in time, and tomorrow we regroup at 7:30 p.m. IST, and we are going to talk through the detailed flows one more time, and then we go into the Oracle screens, and we see that how that particular modules that are going to talk to one another. Okay, thank you so much.